Hello and welcome to the Inquisitorial Archive. My name is Kevin O'Rourke and today I'll be reviewing Honor the Chapter for Deathwatch. Honor the Chapter primarily gives you mostly additional chapters for the PCs. That gives some additional information for the GM, which is good if you want to add more of a social side and a bit more variety to the NPCs you've got walk around your watch station or watch fortress. But at the end of the day, it's primarily something that's going to benefit the PCs. I have issues with this. I will get to those. What is nice is, unlike First Founding, this book focuses on exactly the other sort of thing. This focuses on successor chapters, where they will be Second Founding or later. You get additional rules for the two chapters that are in the main book. You get additional rules for the Black Templars, including a advanced speciality that's unique to their chapter, the Sword Brethren. You also get your squad modes and your solo modes, and a chance to be the Emperor's Champion. By paying 500 XP for the next mission, you get all these perks and different things, but you end up with a situation where at the end of the mission you lose all those things and you don't get the 500 XP back. You can keep spending 500 XP and keep doing this, but you're going to potentially start, if you continue doing this, you're going to potentially start trailing behind the other players. They've got additional stuff for the Stormborns, which is really nice to see because the Stormborns are unique to the Deathwatch RPG, so you're not going to you need the RPG books to get additional information about them. They've got the new advanced speciality, the Tempest Blade, who are they're pretty cool. I like them. I can see some similarities between them and you know, I could really see like playing one. I'd try and play it if I was playing one as a player, I'd try and, or even as an NPC, try and play the personality somewhere between a Trollslayer from Warhammer Fantasy and Bravosi from Game of Thrones. There's probably loads of information I'm missing on them because I haven't actually read the books yet. I'm too busy been reading Dresden Files and RPG books to actually start sinking into it. There's a lot of books, and I'm just mostly finished through with the Dresden Files, so I'm not terribly keen to get into a big series at least yet. But it's very nice. Is you get a lot of, one of the things I think a lot of people are going to like is the Bloodravens. Though the Bloodravens before the computer games kick off. Obviously they're from the computer games, but a lot of people, I think, you know, if they're coming into it from that side and never played tabletop, some people might have fond memories of them, say, hey, I want to play a guy and want to do it like this. It's like, okay, cool. You find a lot of chapters they have here are chapters from the Badab War. I'll actually give you a quick run through because I probably won't mention them all in great details. You get additional information on the Black Templars, the Stormborns, the Bloodravens, as I've mentioned, the Red Scorpions, the Marines Errant, Flesh Tears, Crimson Fists, Howling Griffins, Nova Marines, Raptors, Cardons, and they have Codex chapters. Codex chapters are going to be your guys who just follow the Codex, who don't deviate from it really that much, if at all. There can be slight augmentations, like for Silver Skulls, you get +5 to your int and +1 Fate Point. It's like, wow, that's actually really powerful. But you can also get guys like the Minotaurs or the Firehawks, etc., like that. Remember that the game is set, the Deathwatch game is set a little bit before Modern 40k, so Badab War hasn't happened yet. But I think those chapters have gotten a surge of popularity lately. I know I've developed a growing fondness for the Red Scorpions. I particularly think there'd be some interesting RP opportunity there with them, because they are taken from their families as a child to begin training and testing, which is pretty cool because you don't remember up to being 12 being immortal. You don't have that. You remember training. You have, even though you weren't a battle brother, you were always a member of the chapter, and they have such a focus on purity. I think you could play a very interesting character with them, and as with any of the characters on the different chapters, I do think one or two. I think the Red Scorpions get a bit gimped. They get +5 to willpower and a resistance mutation talent. Now I know they're not the first ones. Like the Bloodravens get +5 to int, and they get +5. Sorry, they get +5 to int, and they get a Scholastic and Forbidden Lore. They get to choose one. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. The problem with giving them a +5 and a resistance mutation is, resistance mutation is 99% of the time useless to a Space Marine. Unlike the other 40k RPGs, you don't get corruption, well, you do get corruption points, but you don't get mutations from until you're over 100, which takes you removed from the game. So you're only getting it from odd circumstances where the GM's basically, give me a test or you're getting a mutation. That really is rare. It might come up in 1 out of 10 campaigns. Now, if your GM's a guy who's going to go for that, it could be fantastically useful for a game where the GM is asking from left, right and centre. It would be a very odd game, but I think it could work. But they've got nice little abilities, like they have the flesh tears when they get a full thing themselves here, because before they've kept that thing here where for the blood successors, dark age successors, basically how to augment them, how to do them, how to basically take a blood angel but you're doing an angel sanguine, what little changes if any you need to do with them. But the flesh tears are different enough to warrant their own entry, and they are crazy. You get, let me read out the flesh tears advanced scheme. Frenzy, Berserk Charge, Fearless, Battle Rage, Furious Assault, Mental Rage, and Whirlwind of Death. They are dangerous guys, but they're horribly messed up. But it's nice just to be able to go through different chapters and look at different abilities. They've got a decent bit of background for them, which I like. It's, unfortunately, with a book, when you're detailing that many space in chapters, it starts to get annoying because you get thinking, I'm sure many people have noticed it's sometimes annoying when you're reading through this chapter, like, but this chapter is more stubborn than most. It's like, some of the guys writing background for Games Workshop stuff, some are doing a great job, but some of them just even a basic thing of, even if I don't like where you're going to thing, try and buy this Thesaurus. As a friend of mine told me in one of the novels he was reading, he loves Crimson Fist. It's a Crimson Fist novel, but every time he hit someone, he cored them like an apple. With his Power Fist. Oh, he hits them, oh, he's coring them like an apple. There we go. No. Okay, great for you. It's nice to see different options going on here. Some of them I'm not so sure about, like the Raptor's trapping seems quite powerful. You get a scope with 2 lenses on it, and one of them allows you to this isn't something you can do for heavy weapon, but you can certainly do it for basic weapon. I'm thinking if you strap this on a Stormbolter, you'd be ridiculously vicious. You get bonus penetration to the weapon equal to your perception bonus. And you get 2 lenses, you can't take the same lens twice. And once you have it, you can't change what's in it, but it's quite powerful. Your Cardons, their like rarians would be vicious, but like for example, they have a psychic power. They can basically almost extend. I'm not going into the mechanics of it, but they could almost extend the surprise round. It's pretty nasty. Now, over here, I'll talk about things that really do annoy me about this book. And it hasn't just started with this book; it started really in First Founding. They gave additional squad modes and solo modes to most of the characters from the chapters in the core book, and the Imperial Fist from Rites of Battle. That's fine, except for they didn't do this for in First Founding, the new chapters they're introducing, and they didn't do this for the chapters here. Although they did it for the Black Templars, and they did give these storm modes an additional solo mode. They haven't given them additional squad modes, but they gave them additional solo mode. It seems unbalanced. And it's not just for symmetry. You're giving additional options. Additional options is always more power, and it's more fun. So why should some of these chapters be less? I don't like that. But one thing is, but that started in First Founding. So that was a design choice they made back then. Something they could easily rectify. Maybe it's something they're planning on rectifying at some stage. But something that I really annoy, and it has to be leveled, unfortunately. Well, there's a couple of people who are going to be at fault here, but it's going to be the editor's fault at the end of the day, because each of the different chapters has their own solo mode. But they have an inconsistency here where they're not specifying whether it is a passive or active solo mode, which can make a big difference, which means that James Gunn's made call. Some sections do say if it's active or passive, and some don't. So that's something the editor should have caught. In fairness, it's not something they introduced in the original book, it's something they introduced in Rites of Battle, but it's a mainstay now, and it should have been made very clear. The Codex chapters, their advanced scheme is big, it's really big, but the stuff isn't as cheap as other chapters. Because you want to give them something, obviously. You know, it's like, oh, we're playing Codex chapter. What does that mean? I don't have a Codex advanced table. That would be terrible, that would be boring. So thankfully, you know, with off, yeah, you can get Bolter Drill, and you can get, you know, Fearless and things like that. You can get your tactics up, and you can get your man up. It's like, okay, that's cool, that's great. You have demeanors you can pick from, chapter demeanors, and they have a Primarch's Curse you can pick from. They're basically your standoffish your mortals. The solo mode they gave from was quite cool, where basically your chapter might not be as famous as the Blood Angels or the Imperial Fists or the Black Templars, but you will strive to uphold the honour and prove that your chapter is not less than them. So when you spend fate points once per encounter, you have the potential opportunity that you haven't lost a fate point, it comes back. You get it, not burning fate points, but spending them. And they've got their own, they just did a few quick generic psychic powers, so when you're playing a psychic from, you've got, you know, chapter fencings. The problem is, which I do find annoying, is that they don't have squad modes. and they don't specify that they shouldn't have squad modes. As I said before, I got a response back from Tim Flanders, and he's one of the developers there, and I'd asked, hey, what happens with some of the chapters, like if I'm playing and I asked him, like, so when they do bring out this book with the Flesh Tears art, do they get the first founding Blinders abilities? He's like, yes. Of course, you might have got a different response if you sent in a similar question. Fancy Flight's services for asking questions, famously, sometimes people get back actually different answers, which is unfortunate. But without squad modes for these guys, it really sucks, particularly for tactical marines. If you're playing a tactical marine, one of the two abilities you can choose is being able to share your chapter squad mode. Now, I can understand for Codex Marines, some people have made the point and argued with me, and I see their point to a degree, that you could have player characters. Well, because your chapter is a Codex chapter, you don't have the distinction to develop your own squad mode. Okay, fine. But one thing I'm thinking about doing if anyone ever wants to play one of my games is basically saying, okay, I'll look at the chapter that you're using, and I will come up and look at the Codex attack patterns from the core book, and then say, well, your chapter favours these. They haven't changed them, but basically you can treat these as chapter squad modes, which means if you're a tactical marine, even if you're because these are your chapter squad modes, even though they're Codex ones, if you're not using the oath that allows you access to these, you can still share them with people because you're so practiced in using these, because this is more favoured. You can't tell me that the Minotaurs aren't going to have a different fighting style than the Silver Skulls. They are. There's going to be a bit of a difference. They're going to they prefer their close quarter combat, so I'd be thinking for them, I'd be thinking Furious Assault and maybe Bolter Assault, though obviously you're going to pick a defensive one, but that kind of an idea, just to throw it out there. I think that could work out quite well, but once more, this is my own house rule / well, because they're not actually saying you don't get chapter squad modes, technically going by the answer I got back off from questioning them, if you're playing a Silver Skull, which is a Codex chapter, because they are a Ultramarine successor, they would get the additional Ultramarine stuff from first founding book. I think that, you know, if they just had things a bit better done out, it could have saved some confusion. And I'm not sure if I think they might have intended just to leave this stuff out, but unfortunately it doesn't seem fair to me. It doesn't seem fair at all. They have a lot of additional and just small sections for the different chapters. Star Phantoms, Astral Claws, they're all in there. Minotaurs, they've got a lot of, quite a few of them there. And also they have rules for Legion of the Damned, which is quite nice. Not for you to play one, so don't panic, because I would, well, not for you to play one long term, because they have the option there that if one of the PCs dies in the middle of a fight, that they could play a Legion of the Damned Marine who shows up and assist him for the mission. Does not talk to him, makes it very clear. Should not never speak or indicate really any kind of method of communication, really, because that ruins the kind of the mystery. I don't like where Games Workshop personally went with their background. I know they're supposed to be connected with the Firehawks, and that was a really big hint, but I think they lost out. And I think, I'm not sure if I would have ever been really happy once they, you know, pulled back the curtain. I think part of the mystery was a good thing, but I think they could have done better with it. But it's not that often if you're in a big fight, like maybe the end game fight, and one of the player characters unfortunately died early on, or you're only halfway through the fight. Having this opportunity there for them to continue helping and fighting is there. It gives ideas of how other people should roleplay, because it's like, oh yeah, a Space Marine just appeared out of nowhere and he's helping us. Like, that's not something, you know, even Space Marines going like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, just carry on. It's like, no, that people should be active going, what? And the players in my game, the one time I used it, almost shot the Legionnaire, because they didn't know who he was until one of them passed the test. They'd heard the legend of them. You get a nice section where you talk, where they give the different relics that are in the care of the Deathwatch from different chapters. For Marines are Bloodravens, a lot of them. It's quite nice to have that going on there, because it gives a bit more individuality. They're never going to have as many as some of the other ones, like the first founding ones. They're always going to have more. But the book rounds itself off at the end, talking about how you can take advantage of the different rivalries and issues between different chapters to encourage role playing. Because I know I know some people have brushed it, you Deathwatch, they're like, yeah, but why would Space Marines role play between sessions? You know, between missions, they're just Space Marines. And yes, they do. Unfortunately, they printed off things saying, yeah, Space Marines only get 15 minutes of free time a day. And one thing's backwards. Like, fair enough, but You need to kind of move away from that a bit, because the end of the day, it is a role-playing game, and it's a lot more fun if your characters build up relationships. They're not back in their home chapter, and the Deathwatch works like a very different organisation. It's options. In summary, this book is options. A lot of options for the player. There's definitely some useful information here for the GM. Made a bit at the back, but it gives you additional chapters, so more variety, more options. And there's going to be one or two people who are like, I love Flesh Tears because I play on the tabletop, or I love these guys who've mentioned name out, or even just going with, yeah, I just want to try something a bit different because you've played a lot. It gives additional options. There's nothing in here that is glaringly broken or imbalanced. I've told you about what the parts I have issues with. And being honest there, that's my issues. I know other people aren't going to necessarily care about them, but I'm giving you my honest opinion about it. I'm glad I spent the money on it. I've definitely had use for it in my games. It's not necessary, as many RPG supplements aren't. But it's a good buy. If anything I've said intrigues you, then you should consider it a bit more. If you kind of go, I don't care about Bloodravens, I don't care about Flesh Tears, I don't care about Marines Aren't, I don't care about Red Scorpions, and your GM and the other players don't, you don't need it. Simple as that. So, I hope you found this informative. I'll see you again. Goodbye.